Hello crafters, I'm JanB and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator. Today I'd like to show you how I made this card. I'm going to change the colour scheme as I normally do, and I'm going to be using Blackberry Bliss. So the cardstock you're going to be needing is the card base, which is Whisper White, and it measures 8 1/4 inches by 5 3/4 inches, scored and folded at 4 1/8. In metric, that's 21 centimetres by 14.5, scored and folded at 10.5. A layer of Whisper White, which measures that's Blackberry Bliss even. A layer of Blackberry Bliss, which measures 4 inches by 5 5/8 inches, which is 10.25 by 14.25 centimetres. A layer of Designer Series paper, and this one is from Wildflower Fields, which is a Sale-A-Bration product, which ends on 31st of March 2016, so there's only a couple of days left to get this one. And then you need a piece of Vellum, a piece of Whisper White and a piece of Blackberry Bliss, all of which measure 3 3/4 inches by 2 1/2 inches, which is 9.5 centimetres by 6.5 centimetres. And you also need another piece of Whisper White, which measures 2 1/2 inches by 2 inches, and that is 6.5 by 5 centimetres. Right, the first thing we're going to do is stamp the vellum, because that does take time to dry. And I'm going to use the Blackberry, I'm going to use a black Archival ink, and the stamp I'm using is the flower stamp from Birthday Blooms, and it's this one here that I'm using. And all you need to do is to stamp this as much in the centre, I don't need that bit yet, do I, of your piece of vellum. And what I do is I tend to put my piece on my grid paper, so that I know that that is more or less centre, that square, the way the lines cross over there. And when you go down onto vellum, be careful, because it does slide, well, it will slide easily. Very, very carefully, just give it a little press. There we go. And then put that to one side to dry. So while that is drying, we can do the other stamping. And we will be using Sahara Sand, and the stamp set is Timeless Textures, and we're going to be using that stamp, that one and that one. And what we're going to do is, I'll show you this. This was the first card that I made. Quite often when I'm doing my prototypes, if you like, I do use some of the retired products, because I don't expect to be showing you what I've used, but today's is an exception, because there's things on here that I want you to see. And what I want to show you is, I thought once I'd made this card that that white background behind the poppy looked a bit stark. So what I did on this one, I stamped the background using the Timeless Textures and Sahara Sand ink. I don't know how well you can see that down low, but you can see what a difference it makes. I just think it makes it look a lot softer. But if you don't like this look, you may want to leave out this Timeless Texture stamping. And I've also done it on this piece here, although that's a different sentiment. It's a current sentiment, that one. That's from Boys Will Be Boys. But again, I didn't do that background either. So you do have the choice. Right, I'm going to do the Timeless Textures. So I'm going to do it on both of these pieces. and I have absolutely no plan how I do this at all. It really is totally random. Let's do some on this one as well. And then I'll bring this one in. Let's go back to this sheet. Bearing in mind some of the outside pieces are going to be cut off anyway, because this piece is going to be die cut with a shape. I can't think what it's called, lots of something or other. Okay, so that's that one okay. That's that one all right. And this is my favourite stamp in this set, and this is the, I call it a leafy one. So that's going to be that way. So this is the only one I try and place, because I want that one to show up. That's beautiful, isn't it? Really love that. Now this one also, my poppy is going to be here. So I'm going to get this one here. You probably noticed that I've been cutting rubber off of this stamp. I was making too much of a mess as I was putting it down, and I was getting the extra lines around it. I must let you know that if you do this, which I do to a few of my stamps, if you do it, you do make your guarantee with Stampin' Up! Null and void. It doesn't worry me because I don't expect to have problems with my stamps, but obviously if you do this to it, you've already damaged it, so it's understandable that you lose any kind of warranty. As I say, I don't see it as a problem because I don't expect to have trouble with my stamps anyway. Right, so there's those two. So that's going to need cutting, that will need cutting. Let me just stamp this one, and for this I'm using this is another Sale-A-Bration item. It's called Party Pants, and it's this little stamp here. I'll be sorry to see this go because I love this one. But again, this is another one that I've been cutting the sides off of. Right, I'm just going to put this in the centre. That's it. Doesn't matter that it's not quite straight because I can straighten it up when I put the die onto it. Right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my poppy, and here's one, just in case that one's not dry, here's one that I did earlier, and I'm going to turn it over. Okay, so that's where I've stamped. Turn it over that way, and I'm going to colour it in. I'm using my marker pens. This is Blackberry Bliss, and you don't want to go over the edge on the outside lines, but it doesn't matter if you go over the edge on inside lines. Once you finish painting this as well, you want to have a look at it from the front just to see what it looks like. To a certain extent it will look a little bit shadowed, which is okay. It's just the areas that look a little bit white that you don't want. So that, and then for the leaves and the stem I'm using Mossy Meadow. This is what it's like when I do classes. As soon as people are painting, silence reigns. It's quite funny. Right, now let's have a look at it from the other side. So there's a little hole right there in my purple, my Blackberry Bliss. Looks a bit unevenly shaded around this bit. Right, that should be fine. Yes, that's a lot better. The green looks fine as well. Okay, so again, put that to one side to dry. So that's all the stamping that's got to be done, isn't it? So now I'm going to bring up my big shot. Let's move that over there. And that we don't need. Right, put this way you can see it. The dies that I'm using are the Lots of Labels framelits, and there are 7 here. I've got the other 4 here. Okay, so these are the 4 that I'm going to be using. So these are numbers 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my Blackberry Bliss piece, and I'm just going to show you something else I'm going to change as well on this. This one here has an actual frame round it. This one has just been, the white has been layered onto the Hello Honey, but I want to change it so that this one has a frame like that. I think it looks a little bit odd like that. Nobody else is going to notice, I know they won't, but for me I can see it and it just looks totally wrong. So what I'm going to do, I've done this once before and it did work. It takes a little bit of time to line it up, but in fact let's start with the smallest one first, because if one decides it wants to move, it's going to be that one. Okay, so do that one. That's number 2, then number 3, and do it so that you've got the same amount of gap between your dies here, and also keep an eye on that as well to make sure you've got the same amount top and bottom. And bear in mind that I'm looking at this sideways, so you get a better view than I do. So if it's gone a bit wonky and I can't see it, I know some of you are probably shouting out at me, trying to help me, but I can't hear you. Right, move over you. There really isn't much room here for manoeuvring. As I say, don't forget to check the distances here as well, not just at the side. I don't know, but I think from where I'm sitting it looks as if all the gaps on this side are a bit wider than this side. Oh, I'm going to settle for that. I could be here all day fiddling. Right, I'll hold that tight now so that nothing moves. Okay, so let's see what we have. We have one of those, that one which we won't be using, and that one that we will. In fact, we won't be using that one either. But we will be needing that one. Okay, so they're the two frames. We need to cut this with the largest frame. We also need to cut this with the medium size. Now this I've got to remember to get straightened out a bit. Now if you remember that with all of these framelits, the actual cutting blade is this bit on the right on the outside here. So when you're lining them up, it doesn't matter if you've got that side coming off of your paper, but you must have the insides all on your paper. Right, let me just tilt that a bit. Yes, that looks fine. And that's fine as well. Then the last piece I will need to do is the vellum. Right, okay. So now this one's going to be the base for the flower. That's the sentiment. Right, bring that one back. That's what I need for the flower. Those two could be saved. Right, this is one that I made earlier. So that will be, I have a better chance that that will be dry than the other one. If you don't want to wait for this to dry, what you can do, let me just move mine out of the way first, is you can take yourself a piece of kitchen roll, just put that down upside down, but just press it onto your paper, onto the kitchen towel, just to soak up any more moisture. There was quite a bit on there, see. You can take your heat gun to it. I personally don't recommend that because I think that vellum does tend to warp. That's the reason why I decided that I wasn't going to use black embossing powder on here. As I was talking earlier, I thought, I know there was a reason why I said to stamp it rather than heat emboss it, and that was the reason, because it can make your vellum warp. And because you can't stick the whole of the vellum down, you can't actually disguise it all. Right. Again, I'm quite okay to have this at an angle because the cutting blade is still all touching the vellum. Actually, I've just had another thought of what I could have done, and that is, for the sentiment, I could have stamped on the background like that, but the actual stamping I could have done on a piece of vellum and then just put that over the top. That would have looked nice. Oh well, it's something that you can do. I won't go back and redo that, but I might do it if I make this card again, or do something similar like this again. I would certainly do that. Right, I think I finished with the Big Shot now. I won't need that. Right, move that out of the way. Right, something else I'm going to do to my frames is I'm bringing in my mouse mat, and I'm also bringing in this sheet here, which is from my paper piercing pack. See, I can do paper piercing around these frames here. This is a current item. You can get this. It comes with 3 sheets. Forgotten to bring the others over with me. But here, that says happy, that says hello, and that's for you, and that's just a design on there. And all of these you can use. Don't know, can you see that on there better? You can see it more because the light's catching it, can't you? But I love paper piercing. I think the extra that it adds to your work is really superb. Right, let me just knock off the hairy bits that I tend to get with my die cuts. I think the amount, the extra that paper piercing adds to your work, I think it's really well worth doing. I've got all the packs that Stampin' Up! Ever bought out, and I still use them, but more often than not just on my own personal cards. They are definitely something well worth adding to your stash. Right, okay. So I'm going to pop this under there. It's very easy to line this up. You'll need your paper piercer. Bring this down to me as much as possible without going off the screen. Okay, so you just line it up like that. Yes, you can see that, that's good. Now when you do this, make sure you hold on to this really tight, because if you don't, it will go walkabouts. In fact, that's not lined up too well. That's better. Okay, so I really am gripping onto this tight. You can see how my fingers have gone white. I'm clinging onto this so tightly. Oops, didn't go all the way there. See if I can get this back into position again. This is obviously a disadvantage of using such a dark colour. Very difficult to see. Oh, that's better. Okay, so that's that one. There's one for the little one as well. I wonder, now this is an experiment as well, seems how that is difficult. Put a piece of white underneath it. Well, it's not going to make the holes show up any easier, I don't think. All it means is that I'm piercing through 2 pieces of paper rather than 1. Oops, see, I moved that. There we go, that's all right. Right, so what we're going to do now, I think, is we're just going to put everything together again. Well, not again, put everything together. So I'm going to bring over my silicone mat and I'm going to use my two-way glue pen and also my Tombow. So first I'll put my card together. Okay, so that's that one. Now this one, when I cut this out, I made sure I got the maximum amount of Blackberry Bliss into this piece of DSP, so that that's going to go on there, and when my frame goes on, I'll get a bit showing here and some down here. Although that one I did it sideways, didn't I? Well, even if I do it sideways, still get that and that. I wonder if I want to put this one upright, vertical rather than horizontal. I'll have a look at that, I think, before I stick the pieces on. So I definitely need my DSP this way round in case I decide I want my card vertical. So now to get these together, what I need first of all is this, my frame. Where's my tweezers? Oops, that was one I made earlier. Right, so I'm going to put glue around here and then I'm going to fit it on top of there. And as I'm using two-way glue pen, I don't have too long to hang around, because the reason it's a two-way glue pen is if you just put this glue onto something and leave it to dry, it will dry tacky, so it's like post-it notes, removable, which is a great feature to have, but it does mean to say that you can't hang around when you're actually using it as a proper glue. But I just find it so useful for narrow pieces of cardstock. Right, so I'm just going to line this up because these are both exactly the same size. There shouldn't be anything overhanging. Okay, so once you've done that, just give it a squeeze all round to make sure it's adhered down. And this is why I didn't want to do the heat embossing, because if this had warped, it would still stay warped because it's not being glued totally. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue round where there was glue underneath, and I'm going to adhere it onto this one. And you don't want to allow the glue to show through here. So don't go over the cardstock that you can just about see underneath. In fact, if you struggle like that, put it onto white, onto something white. Even possibly, as I did before, with some paper underneath it. Okay, so bring that up. And now squeeze again to make sure that that all adheres down. Because this is all the same size, to a certain extent you will be able to see. Can you see that? In fact, let's put it on there. I think you'll be able to see it better. You can see very little white areas down the side here. If that bothers you, what you can do is take a sharp pair of scissors, and if you tilt this but have your scissors tilting the opposite direction, don't have your scissors facing on like this because you have a very strong chance you're going to cut your actual cardstock there. But if you cut at an angle like that, you will be able to cut a slither of the underneath off without doing any damage to your cardstock. I did this earlier on and it looks like my scissors could really do with a clean. See, you'll only take an absolute slither off. Oops, can you see that? That bit there. Obviously more difficult when you want to go around a corner, but not impossible. In fact, what is happening is the blade that's on top is sliding down behind the cardstock. And it's just cutting that piece down there. It's not actually cutting this cardstock here at all. But do take your time doing this. One full smooth and that's it. You'll have cut your cardstock. I'm sure you don't want to go back to square one again. Just a little bit in there. I wonder if I can get that. I think it may be better to leave that rather than try removing it. To a certain extent, depending on what colour you've got here, it's not going to show too much anyway. Now this piece here, I'm going to do the same and just put some 2-red glue pen on it and adhere it together. So let's try that. Again, try and line up exactly. There we go. Except I've stuck it to my mat. Another suggestion of what you could do, just thought about this one, is if you've still got your Blackberry Bliss pen with you, you could just doing this from the back, okay, just go along there like that so that it actually colours the white. This is probably a lot safer to try than the cutting. But that doesn't look as if it's closed down very well. Which means trying to colour inside, which I'm not sure is a very good idea. It's okay all the time you don't slip and you don't get it on your fingers, so you start putting it on there as well. There we go, that looks fine to me. Right, now what do we want to do? In fact, this is a bit disappointing. I have to... oh no, maybe not. Depends which angle you look at it. From where I was, from here, all I could see was just a mass of colour. But when I tilt it up like this, I can actually see the flower. That's good. Right, now what do I want? Do I want it like that? And like this? Or do I want it this way? Well, I think what I'll do is I'll do it round this way, because then I've got one of each. In fact, I quite like the fact that that's going that direction and that's going the opposite, which is, I suppose, the same as that. I'm going this way. Right, I'm going to pop this on with dimensionals. Unfortunately, I don't have any ribbon. Well, I do have some ribbon in Blackberry Bliss, but it's far too thick to try and put a small bow like I have on this one. So I do have an alternative plan. I'm just trying to get that in the centre and sort of straightish. And then I'm going to use dimensionals on this as well. You see how I've caught my pen on here, which is why I say when you're doing this, use your pen at the back. So if you slide, it comes down on the back rather than at your front, which is what you really don't want. Now again, I don't want forced dimensionals on here, so I'm going to take one and cut that in half. So I have half there, half there. Right, so what I use for my bow is the white jute, I think is what we're calling it. Don't you stick there. Right. There we go, let's get these out of the way. Where's my roll of jute? This is, let's see what they're calling it, white come on, oh, jute ribbon. It's a stretch of imagination calling this ribbon. Right, that's what it is. It's beautiful. I love this. And the other thing I like about it is you can cut up all these strands and then finish up with like this. And I've quite often used these for bows. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do today. I've got 2 threads and I'm just going to do a bunny bow, bunny ears bow. The thing is, for the design, I need something that's quite small. And and this fills the bill, fits the bill really nicely. And I like this because it's got all this like furry bit which just makes it that little bit different. What did I just do with the bow? Did I leave it on there? No. Oh, here it is. Right, so I'm going to pop that on there, but I think I need it a bit smaller. That's better. I'm going to cut a little bit of that fur off. I don't like that much on it. Go around in a circle because I don't want it to look as if I've just been cutting it. Right, pull the tails down, cut those off the same. Right, I'm going to do that now with glue dots. And what I've found easiest for me is to take a glue dot and just fold it in half while it's on the roll, because it will be too fat by itself to actually stick on the bow without showing through. Oh, come on. I'm trying to be too gentle here. I'm trying to get that so that the glue dot will hold the folds of the bow in place but not interfere with the actual tails. Well, there we go. It looks quite wintry, I think, that bow. Okay, there we go. That's my card for today. I don't know which one I like best. I think I quite like this one actually. But after I finish the video I'm going to check out whether I've got this straight, because it doesn't look it. Anyway, many thanks for joining me today. If you have any questions, please contact me. As always, I'm happy to help. If you've enjoyed my video, please click the subscribe button so that you get notified every time I put up a new video. If you'd like to buy any of the products that I featured here today, please click on the 24/7 link that you'll find in the box below. Also, I'll be putting all the measurements and all the products that I've used on the screen, but depending on which device you're watching the video on, you may not be able to see them. So you, again, look in the box below and I'll put all the details down there for you. Many thanks for joining me today. Until next time, happy crafting. Cheerio.